This beautiful bike behind me is the Cube Agree C62 SL, and it surprised us all in the office because despite its endurance makeup, it's actually a performance orientated bike, and that is why it has a big place in my heart and in this year's Editor's Choice.
So I've ridden the Cube Lightning quite a lot, which is the brand's performance race bike. How does this differ? Because they don't look that dissimilar.
No, and you'll be right in saying that. The silhouette isn't too dissimilar if you look at them directly in comparison. So Cube called the Agree race inspired, so the geometry is kind of has a racing element to it, which kind of, makes this bike so good and makes the ground level design a good idea. So they've pulled much of the geometry from the racing Lightning that you rode, but tweaked it a little bit to help the endurance rider out a bit more, so to be more sort of stable and a bit safer maybe, as well as being a bit more comfortable. So what they've done is they've increased the length of the top tube slightly, increased the tall stack of the head tube, as well as the length of the wheelbase. Not by much, just for a few millimeters there, 10 millimeters max for the wheelbase. But they've kept the seat tube quite compact and quite short, which gives you a bit more seat post and extra compliance on that side. But they also have a dropped rear stay and keeping those triangles really tight, which means it's actually got a nice racy edge to it. So although you can spend some time being quite upright and relaxed if you needed to, if you did want to punch up that climb or really go for it, then you could actually just go, yeah, do you know what, let's knock it down a cassette and really punch it out. And that's what I found with this bike, is a surprise in the fact that I am actually quite comfortable in geometry terms way and fit wise, but when I want to go for it, the bike just goes with me.
I think that's what I really like about bikes that don't feel like they have to compromise in places. And it's very rare that you get a bike that can do both things very well.
Yeah. So part of that makeup which makes this bike so great is that it starts with their manufacturing processes. So Cube, in their own factory, building these bikes, and they use something called twin mold technology, which basically allows them to really be precise with how they lay up the carbon, and each fibre is in a specific place and they know where it is, so they can use extra material if they need to make it stronger in a certain area, like the bottom bracket or the down tube, but they can also take away that material if they need to in places where it either needs to be compliant or you just don't need it. So it doesn't have to be that heavy. So complete, this bike weighs 7.4 kilograms, which isn't the lightest bike you can get, but equally for the price, which is just under £3,000, for 7.4 kilograms, you're getting a bike that in weight terms is quite competitive. And they've done that by, within the frame and the fork is made with the same process. They're finding ways in which to save a little bit of weight, but also giving you that extra performance. So sort of stiffness to weight ratio is actually very good with this bike.
I think that's like kind of historically, again, you don't really see that with endurance bikes that often. You usually have to compromise on the weight, and you have quite a heavy bike that might be comfortable, but it's pretty hard work lugging it around.
Yeah.
So to have a bike that's nudging down to the 7 kilo mark is pretty impressive.
Definitely, and if you wanted to, there's compromises here to keep the price down. The Fulcrum 44s here are very, very good. They're a very good solid wheel. They roll really nicely. But swap those out for a lighter set of wheels,
totally.
and you're heading down to the UCI weight limit anyway.
Yeah, if you in the summer, if you threw up like a lightweight carbon deep section into this, you'd be flying along your sportives or your long rides.
100%. One thing I do want to get across with this bike is it is actually amazing value for money. So yes, it does cost £2,999, which to anyone is a large sum of money. But if you want to directly compare that to other major bike brands in the UK or further afield, you don't get anywhere near the same quality of component that you do with the Cube Agree than you do with those other major brands. So you get a full Shimano Ultegra Di2 group set, which is almost unheard of at that price point. I think you're always pretty much going to get mechanical, which would probably be Ultegra at that stage. But you get full carbon fork, even Continental GP4000 tyres, which are high-end, highly acclaimed tyres that we know and love. With the finishing kit is all from Newman, which is a carbon seat post, super thin, is 27.2 millimeters. Cube say it helps vibration dampening, which it does because it's a comfortable bike, and you get an alloy handlebar and stem. Do a bit of shopping and shop around and look at a £3,000 bike and see what you actually get, and the Cube is right up there in terms of value for money. You know, the bike is also very good. It's not like a super value bike where you go, got great components, but I'll probably get rid of the frame, so I buy it and then upgrade the frame later. You don't need to do this with this. It's kind of, you've got a great bike, and maybe the one thing you'd want to do is, as we said earlier, is get a set of carbon hoops just for those super lightweight summer days, and then you've got yourself an absolutely stunning bike.
Yeah, they always say prioritize the frame because that's the thing that you're going to want to keep for forever. But like, it's just so nice when you see a bike that does it all.
Yeah.
Straight off the bat, it's super impressive and rewarding when it doesn't like cost the earth to get it as well.
So yeah, sticking with the group set and what you get for your money, you also get direct mount brakes, front and rear, which we both love. You know, I think it's claimed to be around 25 to 30% better braking force than you get with the standard pivot brakes.
Kind of one of those things that you have to feel to believe. It's kind of quite difficult to explain how much better they are.
Definitely.
And you get none of that frustrating brake rub when your pivot gets like knocked a little bit.
Yeah,
but annoying.
If you do love disc brakes, and I know you love disc brakes, I do too, this bike does come as a disc brake option.
Nice.
Despite this being an endurance bike, and it has some slight race credentials that Cube claim, Cube does mention a few bits about aerodynamics, and yes, it's not an aero bike, but it has some aero trinkets that helps things along. So as you can see, the seat post collar is hidden and integrated. Tradition now is a drop seat stay is more aerodynamic than the traditional high seat stay, which it has here as well, and it's kind of been shaped to help that airflow. And Cube say that they've tuned and shaped the fork and the down tube as well. So you can see it's got a nice flat back there, and it is shaped around these edges. And it's not an aerodynamic bike, and it's not going to be the fastest and most efficient bike you can buy, especially against aero bikes of 2018, which have just been amazing. But the little bits that help add to the overall greatness of this bike.
And it's not an afterthought either. You know, they've thought about it in the process quite clearly. And then maybe they've been like, we can't make this, it can't be a fully fledged aero bike, but there is scope here to give it something, because every little helps really when it comes to aerodynamics.
Definitely.
So out riding this bike, what does it feel like?
This bike got 10 out of 10 when I reviewed it, and it's, you go out, and I had my doubts. I was like, you know, it's an endurance bike, it's not my favourite style, and I think that's why it surprised me so much. So just out on the road, you know, you do feel slightly higher up than you would on my race bike, for example, but it doesn't feel out of the ordinary. You're cruising along, it comes specs with 25mm tyres, which have a bit of cushioning, but you know, the slender rear stays and the new seat post that they've got, which is 27.2mm wide, help absorb some road, you know, buzz, and you're comfortable, you're happy. For being branded an endurance bike, it doesn't feel heavy. It, you know, you're riding in a group and your mate comes up to you and nudges you and it's like, come on, let's go for it. And you're like, yeah, I am going to go for it because I can, and I feel this bike is capable. For the UK conditions and the sorry state that most of our roads in Hampshire and Surrey, where we do a lot of our riding, it just allows you to just ride normally, like you almost were in, you know, Girona or somewhere in Spain, and you know the roads are a bit more perfect, and it's kind of like, you know, this isn't so bad, and it's one of those bikes that allow you to go out and not think about the imperfections and not worry about anything that's going to annoy you or put you off riding your bike, because especially heading into the winter, it's like, oh, you know, it's a bit wet, it's a bit damp, or oh, I know that road's a bit bad at the moment. These things won't matter because you're like, I actually enjoy riding this bike. So there you have it. That is the Cube Agree C62 SL, which it sounds a bit weird saying a £3,000 bike is great value for money because it's a lot of money, but you get absolutely everything you need, and you won't really need to upgrade anything at all. And that's why I've chosen it to be in this year's Editor's Choice.